Are there any more questions, please? Question there?
Thank you. The question is, it seems to me that the public interest and the interests of the planet are being hamstrung by private corporate interests and industrial interests. And I guess I'm wondering what you think can be done to break through this logjam.
Okay, give it to Tony first.
One could deal with this question at a number of levels. I think it's quite significant that the corporations have been highly successful in one or two countries, and I think we have to look at the political system in those countries to understand why they have been so successful. The companies in question, working through organizations like the Global Climate Coalition, organizations like Ford, Exxon and General Motors, they've worked in circumstances where money counts and where advertising counts and where you can do deals that have little to do with the public interest but more to do with your profits. And under those circumstances, those companies have prevailed. And they have prevailed to the extent at this meeting that their profits are being put before the future of the planet. In terms of what we do about it, well, there are questions to do with accountability, there are questions to do with transnational regulation, and at the end of the day, there are questions to do with what people choose to do with their consumer dollars in terms of which cars and which petrol they buy. And I think one of the very strong messages coming out of this meeting will be choose very carefully if you're going to buy a car or if you're going to buy petrol, who you get it from, because otherwise you may be selling yourself down the river.
I earlier today in the NGO intervention on behalf of the Climate Action Network stated that it's time for negotiators to stop letting the fossil fuel interests manipulate these negotiations. And I specifically named Exxon, Texaco, and Mobil as interests that are damaging and manipulating these negotiations.
I just wanted to come back on the question about the role of industry. What I've seen and what we've seen for the last few years is a campaign by many American business against the earth. Many American companies, household names like Exxon, Ford, Mobil and Texaco have run a campaign against the earth. They have persuaded the United States government to not accept its responsibility on behalf of the American people, and America has a special responsibility as the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter to actually reduce emissions to help protect the world. What in effect the fossil fuel industry is doing through the American government is holding us all hostage to climate change. That has to stop. The American government has to accept its responsibility, and it has to throw out the vested interests and get on with the job of saving us from very dangerous climate change next century.
Let me just say that the transfer of carbon from one point to another point does not help the atmosphere in its reduction. What the atmosphere needs is reduction in greenhouse gases. By transferring from a rich country to a poor country, one place to another place is playing with a chess game that has no relevance to the future of this planet. Point number one. Point number two, if you please recall what the president of Nauru had said when Vice President Al Gore was there. He called it a cultural genocide in the making. Those who are principally responsible, the industry, the particular industrial power base in the United States, are responsible for this cultural genocide, and they must be taken to task.
I have a question there, please.
Tracy Watson, USA Today. Before this meeting in Kyoto, some environmental groups had said they'd rather have no proposal at all than a weak one. Does this one qualify as so weak that you would reject it?
I'll start with Bill Hare.
There's 24 hours to go in this negotiation. This protocol is too weak to accept in our view. It is full of loopholes. It leaks like a sieve. It will enable emissions to increase almost as fast as though this conference had never actually happened. Negotiators have only 24 hours now to rescue the most important environmental negotiation about the most important environmental issue confronting the future of all of us, of the whole planet, of the forests and wildlife of the whole world. This step must be taken by the negotiators in the next 24 hours to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Otherwise, this protocol will not be worth the paper it's written on or the time it's taken to negotiate.
The night is young. We still have time to rescue this proposal. The Earth truly is in the balance, but we have the time to pull it back. The governments here are playing a shell game with our future. What we want to do is finish that game. Let's get on with protecting the environment. This proposal, as it stands, has to be rejected, must be improved, and it must be improved tonight.
If there is any justice, if there is any commitment to future generations, if there is any representation here by the governments of the people of the world, they must work very hard tonight to pull this thing round. This protocol, they do better by gathering up all the copies they've made and putting them in the safe. That would save more carbon.
I just want to remind folks that we are in the middle of the most important, significant negotiation on an environmental agreement. The stakes here are incredibly high. And the next 24 hours, as Adam Markham said, I think are the most important 24 hours and crucial 24 hours for the future of this planet.
Time for just 2 more questions.
I'm Chun Young Lee from Dongha Daily newspaper in South Korea. You said so many loopholes in this draft allows developed countries to increase their emission by 15%. But I wonder, how do you calculate that kind of figure?
As you may know, environmental groups here, including Greenpeace, have calculated quite accurately the loopholes that have been in these negotiations now for some time. All that we've done is looked at this text as it's been presented here and worked out what loopholes have not been closed off and what loopholes remain. They include the fluorocarbons I've mentioned, the sinks, the forest options, which allow emissions to increase rather than decrease, the hot air in the emissions trading system, and several other loopholes have been opened up by new mechanisms in this protocol. And we believe that emissions would increase some 15 to 20% at the upper end if these loopholes are not closed off tonight. I think we have to remember what's at stake here. The world scientific community has told us that we face, as a consequence of dangerous climate change this coming century, a significant loss of human life from the health effects. Whole forests in the world might disappear. Entire unique cultures might be obliterated by sea level rise. This is what is at stake. We simply cannot afford to have a protocol that leaks like a sieve and that will ultimately sink the climate and sink much of life, the biodiversity of the world with it.
Cops are watching us.